In the middle of Barcelona sits Montjuic, a hill overlooking the harbor, whose history dates back to Roman times. Nestled amongst the trees sits the remains of one of Formula One's greatest ever racetracks. A track that was truly a blast to drive, but one that was also incredibly dangerous, even for the time period. Even in Formula One's deadly years, the Montjuïc Circuit was one that struck fear in drivers. This is the story of the 1975 Spanish Grand Prix, a chilling weekend that changed the landscape of Formula One forever. The Montjuïc Circuit ran on city streets, obviously, first hosting the Spanish Grand Prix in 1969. It had long been in use for motorcycle racing, but we can go back all the way to the 1920s to see that racing had been held on the site for decades. Like many racetracks of its day, it was just public roads with Armco barriers. It was Spain's answer to Monaco, except for one key difference. Montjuïc's latter half was a full throttle blast through long, sweeping corners. It was nothing but a rush of Armco, trees, lampposts, and fans. Even in an era where Jackie Stewart led the charge on driver safety, and the Grand Prix Drivers Association advocated for its members, Montjuïc was incredibly dangerous but popular with fans. F1 journalist Nigel Roebuck said, "This was the greatest street circuit I ever saw. Imagine Monaco, but with more variety of turns and gradients, and much faster, and some flavor of Montjuïc Park should then emerge." As you can see in this incredibly messy lap from me on a recreation of the track in Assetto Corsa, the track had immense elevation changes. The tight first sector opened into a roller coaster ride of corners through the back half of the course. In a 1970s F1 car, it had to have scared pretty much anyone who took to the track. What scared them even further was when the paddock arrived for the 1975 Spanish Grand Prix. Upon arrival, drivers and team members discovered that the Armco barriers were poorly installed. Poorly fastened Armco barriers had led to the deaths of several drivers in the years preceding 1975, most notably Francois Sévère at Watkins Glen in 1973. The Grand Prix Drivers Association then got involved and ordered the FIA and race promoters to do the right thing and do something about the Armco barriers. When they were met with a metaphorical shrug of the shoulders, mechanics from every team went out themselves on Saturday and fixed the barriers. Race organizers, sensing a looming boycott, informed teams that if they did not meet the contractual obligation to race to the best of their ability, Spanish police could impound their equipment. This scared most everyone into competing, with the exception of Emerson Fittipaldi. The reigning world champion made the required 3 laps in qualifying at minimum speed, and then went home in protest. His brother Wilson started the race and then withdrew on the first lap. Almost immediately, the 1975 Spanish Grand Prix was a disaster. Under braking for the first hairpin, Mario Andretti tagged the back of Niki Lauda, triggering a stack-up that eliminated the Austrian. The hits kept coming as Patrick Depailler, Alan Jones, Mark Donohue, James Hunt, and Tom Price all retired from the race due to crashes in the opening third of the race distance. However, the race would take a tragic turn on lap 26. The high levels of attrition left Rolf Stommelin, driving for Graham Hill's team, in the lead for the first time ever. If he could keep it on the road, he could be in for a big day. Sadly, it was not meant to be. On lap 26, the rear wing broke on Stommelin's car as he crested the hill into turn 1. He spun left towards the inside, but the elevation change and relatively low Armco barrier allowed for the car to catch air and get over the barrier and into the spectator area. The Armco barrier, after falling under much scrutiny, held up well, but it wasn't enough to stop Stommelin's car from going over it. The resulting crash claimed the life of a fire marshal, a spectator, and 2 photographers. Stommelin was left with 2 broken legs, 2 broken ribs, and a broken wrist. His F1 career fizzled out after his recovery, and he moved to sports cars, where he became a 4-time winner of the 24 Hours of Daytona, before ultimately succumbing to injuries sustained in an IMSA race at Riverside in 1983. It seemed like Stommelin was on course for his maiden Grand Prix win that day at Montjuic in 1975, but it never came to be. It became a day of great tragedy instead. At this point, the race continued for 3 more laps before organizers realized the gravity of the situation. The race was stopped, not to resume, and it became the first F1 race in history where half points were awarded for not reaching 60% of the race distance. Jochen Mass was awarded the win for McLaren. Such was the tragedy of the day that Lella Lombardi's 6th place finish, the only points finish for a woman in Formula One history, became a totally forgotten footnote. Montjuic never returned to the calendar after 1975. Sure, lots of drivers had lost their lives in F1, they accepted that risk when they strapped in the race car, but when spectators are put in the line of fire, it becomes a huge problem for sanctioning bodies and promoters. The track was, according to Roebuck, vilified out of existence after 1975, and it was lost to history. Montjuic remains a forgotten icon of Formula 1, the passage of time rendering it to the dustbin of history. It was truly a unique track set amongst a beautiful backdrop. In some ways, Montjuic was way ahead of its time. A street race in the city center that provided something unique, fast, and exhilarating is all the rage in Formula 1 now. I mean, you just have to look at Baku, Miami, Las Vegas, and even Madrid in 2026. Unfortunately, Montjuic was a product of a time when racing was truly a dangerous spectacle. It brought in tons of fans because it was a thrilling and dangerous sight to behold. Sadly, that was the track's ultimate demise after the events of the 1975 Spanish Grand Prix. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.